Trump entered that hearing, expecting it to be normal until Jasmine Crockett asked a single question that broke his confidence in front of the entire nation. The room already felt tense before a word was even spoken. It was a Monday morning, in late September, and all eyes were focused on room 2141 at the Rayburn House office building in Washington. Cameras were set up everywhere. News tickers had turned red. The President of the United States, still in his second term, was about to testify in a major public congressional hearing, defending his most controversial executive order so far, a proposal to cut federal funding to sanctuary cities and remove certain birthright rights. Jasmine Crockett sat quietly at the far end of the panel. A pen rested against her chin. She didn't look nervous. In fact, she looked calm, like she already knew what would happen and was simply waiting for the right moment. She wore a burnt orange blazer and held a steady expression. Around her, aides whispered and staff rushed to handle last-minute tasks. President Trump entered the room 10 minutes late, surrounded by Secret Service and a group of serious-looking advisors. He wore a navy blue suit, a red tie, and had his usual unreadable expression at least from a distance. But up close, cameras caught the puffiness under his eyes, the tightness in his jaw, and the hurried way he moved to the table. Those small signs didn't go unnoticed. The chair started the hearing. "Mr. President, thank you for coming today." Trump leaned into the mic. "Glad to be here. I think we're going to clear a lot of things up. A lot of lies out there. A lot of dishonest people." Behind the press area, reporters shifted. Some raised their eyebrows but stayed silent. The first set of questions was typical policy debates, legal terms, counter-arguments. Trump did what he usually did, avoided direct answers, redirected attention, and dropped soundbites perfect for TV clips. Then it was Crockett's turn. She adjusted her mic slowly and spoke without glancing at her notes. "Mr. President, you say this executive order is about national security. But security for whom?" Trump lifted an eyebrow. "For the American people, all of them." She tilted her head. "And yet this order mostly harms immigrant communities that already contribute to America's economy, infrastructure, and culture. Isn't it true, sir, that your own Department of Justice warned about the wording in Section 12 because of potential constitutional issues?" Trump leaned in, smirking. "I expected better. This is just recycled stuff the fake media pushes every day. I don't respond to opinions, Congresswoman. I respond to results." A brief pause followed. Just a few seconds, but enough for the entire room to feel a shift in energy. Crockett didn't flinch. She didn't speak right away. She allowed the silence to stretch a little longer, just long enough to make Trump uneasy. Then calmly she leaned in. "With all due respect, sir, results should never come at the cost of truth." Some people in the gallery murmured. One of Trump's aides visibly stiffened. A flicker of discomfort crossed Trump's face. He hid it quickly, but Crockett noticed. "Let's talk about truth," she said. "Let's be honest about what this hearing is really about." The real heat hadn't started yet. Crockett didn't come here just to talk policy. She came to hit where it hurt. She shifted slightly in her seat, not from nerves, but control, the kind of move someone makes when they're about to strike. She had waited for this day, not for attention, but because she knew most wouldn't ask the real questions. They'd dodge. She wouldn't. "Mr. President," she said, voice steady and clear, "you often talk about being transparent. You call yourself a straight shooter, so I think it's fair to ask you to clarify things for the public, things that don't match the image you promote." Trump glanced at his lawyer. The lawyer nodded slightly. Trump was paying close attention now. "You've repeatedly claimed your administration is unified, that your family is strong, that your leadership is steady," she continued. "But I have here." She tapped a manila folder, a set of internal emails. "Not from media, not from critics, from your own team, your own aides." The room went even quieter. No whispering, no coughing, just camera shutters and quiet hums. Trump tried to wave her off. "I know where this is going. Another stunt, another trap." Crockett raised her hand, not for drama, just a simple motion of control. "Sir, this isn't personal. These are facts." She opened the folder. Emails between senior aides discussing the First Lady's extended stay in West Palm Beach. Separate living arrangements, private travel. Secret Service logs showing Mrs. Trump has only spent about 20 days total in the White House over the last 3 months. Trump leaned back, crossed his arms, and scoffed. "So now, it's about my marriage. What is this, Congress, or Real Housewives of Washington? Ridiculous." But Crockett didn't stop. "The American people deserve to know whether what they see is real, or a performance carefully held together by media management. A quiet shuffle came from the press area. Even reporters were whispering now. Trump's lawyer scribbled notes rapidly. Crockett kept going unshaken. "You sell your policies as personal values," she said. "But if the core of that image is fake, if your own household is a show, how can the public trust your decisions?" Trump snapped upright. "That's none of your business." "You made it our business," Crockett shot back. "When you campaigned on family values. When you used your marriage as proof of leadership. That's the door you opened." Trump leaned in again, his voice sharp. "You don't know anything about my marriage." "I know what your staff says behind your back," Crockett replied. That was it. Trump slammed his palm on the table. The loud smack echoed. "You're disgusting," he shouted. "This isn't what America wants. You want loyalty, integrity. Look in the mirror." Crockett didn't even blink. "Integrity," she said quietly, "is exactly what I'm talking about." Then, silence. The kind of silence that makes history. Trump had lost his temper. Crockett hadn't even raised her voice. "I'm not done," she said, flipping to the next page. "Because this isn't just about where the First Lady sleeps. It's about secrecy. About how far your administration goes to keep Americans in the dark." Trump muttered something, but the mic didn't pick it up. Crockett didn't stop. In testimony earlier this year, she continued, a former aide said, unprompted, that you now rely only on a small circle. That you've become moody, paranoid, angry about leaks. That you've skipped normal medical checkups. Trump fired back. "Lies. All lies." "Then explain this," Crockett said, her voice sharper. "Why did 3 separate White House aides confirm you demand private on-call medical staff on all international trips, something no president has ever done so often? And why, off the record, did those aides mention the presence of personal garments not for fashion, but for medical reasons?" A reporter gasped. A cameraman whispered, "Oh my God." Trump opened his mouth but no sound came. His face flushed red. "This is disgraceful," he finally barked. "You're out of line. You're the president," Crockett replied. Her eyes never left his. "Every one of your choices affects 330 million people. You can't hide behind that desk anymore." But this wasn't just a moment. This was a hit that landed, and Trump knew it. For a moment, the room sat in silence again. A silence that even viewers at home could feel. President Trump, who had survived countless hearings and scandals, was visibly shaken. His hands twitched. His lips pressed tight. Crockett didn't celebrate. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't smile. She just continued steady. "Sure, I'm not here to attack your personal life," she said calmly. "I'm not here for gossip. Yet, when your leadership expects complete faith from Americans, while concealing internal cracks, it becomes a public matter." Trump leaned forward, clutching the table's edge. "Nobody wants to listen to this. This is garbage. This is what you bring forward. You've lost the public's trust," Crockett replied, her tone sharp and direct. "They've been told one version, while witnessing a completely different reality. So yes, I will say it aloud." She glanced again at her folder. "Not for drama, but to be precise. In April, your staff postponed a Brussels summit. The official reason was security and logistics, but internal communications point to a different cause: a sudden medical delay. The phrase used was, quote, presidential garment concerns. Can you explain what that refers to?" Trump fixed his stare on her. He didn't blink. He stayed silent. She paused. "Do you deny that the onboard medical staff with you were told to stay on alert overnight because of an incident on Air Force One?" Still, he said nothing. She continued, "Because 2 former stewards from that flight provided testimonies. They said medical staff were called after an unspecified mishap occurred during your return trip. Both testified that it was swiftly handled without documentation, under strict instruction from your chief of staff." Trump's face darkened, not in anger's red, but in the patchy flush of emotional and physical strain. "I'm not sitting here to tolerate twisted lies from broken people," he finally said, voice rough. "You're a fraud. You came here to disgrace the presidency." Crockett didn't move. "No, Mr. President. I was elected to defend it." Gasps followed. Real ones. The air changed. For the first time, Trump's voice trembled, but Crockett's didn't. Americans across living rooms, offices, airports, wherever they were, felt the shift. Representative Louise Bista, seated 2 spots away, cleared his throat to interject, but Crockett raised a finger politely, still holding her space. "Let me clarify," she said, voice calm and balanced. "No one here is mocking medical issues. What's appalling is the secrecy, the refusal to be honest. The act. If there is a health condition, you deserve privacy, but not if it comes at the cost of misleading the people, rewriting policies to deflect attention, and punishing whistleblowers who only wanted transparency. Trump slammed his palm on the desk. Lies. You're disgusting. You don't deserve to be in this room. The cameras stayed focused. Crockett leaned forward, just slightly. You've built your image by degrading others. Mr. President, from TV hosts to Gold Star families, from disabled journalists to your own staff. Now someone holds a mirror, and you call it an attack. Trump turned toward the committee chair, voice hoarse. She's out of line. Chairman Clive Arden flipped pages in the rulebook. Representative Crockett has the floor under direct questioning. He mumbled. She may proceed. That sealed it. Trump slouched back slightly, whispering to his lawyer. Crockett resumed, softer now, slower. People watching this may wonder, why does it matter? Here's why. It's not about shaming anyone, it's about responsibility. That office comes with a burden. And if you cannot carry it physically or mentally with honesty and grace, the country deserves the truth. She shut the folder, resting her hands atop it. For 4 years, Americans have endured noise culture wars and constant outrage. Today, they saw something else. A moment. A discussion where power didn't get to shout last. Trump didn't respond this time. His eyes flicked from the cameras to the lawmakers. He no longer held command over the room and he felt it. But the moment wasn't done. Crockett's words had already reached beyond the chamber. Within minutes, video clips began surfacing. CNN cut to breaking news coverage. MSNBC looped Crockett's closing remarks. Fox News pivoted to economic policy, but the internet had shifted. Gears. TikTok exploded, clips, edits. Hashtag Crockett claps back trended globally within 30 minutes. Inside the room, the hearing was still in session technically. Trump sat hunched, murmuring to his legal team. His mic was off, but his body spoke. Tense posture, trembling fingers, a visible sweat mark under his suit sleeve. He'd addressed the nation countless times, but this was different. He had lost the room. Everyone could feel it. Bisa tried to change the topic, asking about border infrastructure, but Trump brushed it off with a frustrated wave. Can we not? Can we stop pretending this is normal? Then the cracks widened. His voice, worn from yelling, rose again, strained and high. I come here, I sit down, and I'm ambushed with tabloid junk from bitter ex-employees twisted into this sick setup. And all of you just sit here like that's okay. The committee chair adjusted his glasses. Mr. President, you are permitted to respond to inquiries. I'm not responding. I'm exposing what this really is. Trump barked. This woman, this angry little woman, thinks she make headlines by dragging my wife into this. My health. Is this some circus? A heavy silence fell. That phrase, angry little woman, hung in the air. Crockett stayed still, tapping her pen softly. Others shifted uncomfortably. Bisa coughed. Another member leaned toward a staffer. Let the record reflect. Crockett said softly, the president just used misogynistic language toward a sitting member of Congress. Oh, here we go. Trump snapped, nearly breaking. Now I'm the villain. Try being ambushed like this, live, and see how you react. He turned back to the chair. So this is how it goes now. People can invent whatever they want about the president and no one speaks up. I believe the American people can decide what to believe, Crockett said calmly. Then Trump stood up. The chair screeched behind him. You know what? This hearing is a farce. This whole thing is garbage. I'm done. You'll get nothing else from me. His legal counsel flinched. An aide half stood, unsure what to do. Sir, the chair said, startled. You were obligated to respond. Oh, now it's an obligation. Where was that when she was lobbing conspiracies at me? Where were the rules then? Secret Service stepped forward, one placing a hand near the mic. Sir, we need you to sit. No, Trump shouted. I'm not letting this happen. I rebuilt this nation, I kept it strong, and now I'm being smeared on live TV. With diapers. That word rang like a dropped mic. It echoed more than expected. Even his allies stiffened. Crockett didn't speak. She didn't need to. A camera zoomed in on her face, calm. Not smug, not triumphant, just present. Trump glared at her. You should be ashamed, he hissed. Attacking a man's family, his dignity, that's unforgivable. Crockett finally replied, low, nearly below the mic's pickup. You can't lose what you gave away yourself. The entire room froze. Even Bisa stopped clicking his pen. Trump stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then, realizing all cameras were still rolling, capturing every tremor, every blink. Sat down, not out of choice, but because walking out would have looked worse. He leaned forward, adjusted the mic, cleared his throat. Let's move on. But no one truly did. What happened in that hearing didn't just mark a moment, it lit a fuse that tore through every headline for the next week. By the end of the hearing, the media machine was already rolling banners reading Crockett silences Trump in dramatic hearing. You can't lose what you gave away. President breaks down on live TV. Yet none of those captured what had already exploded online. Watching, editing, sharing the dismantling moment by moment. Crockett's.com voice layered over epic music on TikTok, and no one, not even Trump, could stop it. While people compared her to courtroom icons and fictional heroes, Twitter lit up. Some called her a modern-day David, standing up to Goliath. Others analyzed her posture and expressions like they were reviewing footage from a championship game. One post that went viral came from a political podcaster. No screaming, no name-calling, just facts. Jasmine Crockett just changed the standard for how leaders confront authority, and she did it wearing a blazer that matched her fire. That evening, cable news was buzzing. On MSNBC, her image filled the screen as panelists praised her calm strength. What we saw today, one anchor commented, was a woman not only ready to challenge the president, but ready to reveal what showmanship, without substance, really costs. CNN replayed her moment. You can't lose what you gave away, then cut to a commentator quietly grinning. That was savage, he said. Even Fox News had to cover it. One host tried labeling it disrespectful to the office. But the footage aired anyway, showing Trump losing composure. On YouTube, reaction videos and highlight reels exploded. One creator paused at Trump's outburst, saying, "You know someone's losing when they stop replying and start shouting." Crockett didn't raise her voice once. Still, it wasn't just about viral edits or trending hashtags. What struck people most were the quieter moments: parents watching with kids, teachers discussing the event in classrooms, older voters calling radio stations, saying they'd never seen a takedown so powerful yet calm. Crockett's office was flooded with messages, some angry, yes, but mostly thankful. Veterans, nurses, seniors, students, many hearing her name for the first time sent appreciation. For the first full day, Crockett said almost nothing publicly. Her team posted one sentence: "Integrity doesn't need volume. Truth doesn't need drama." That post quickly soared past 1 million likes. The president, however, did not stay silent. Just before midnight, he opened Truth Social and began typing furiously. At exactly 12 a.m., his post went live. "Jasmine Crockett is a disgrace to Congress. A terrible, mean liar who twisted facts and insulted my family on national TV. Her performance was fake." The post was instantly reposted, mocked, screenshotted, and picked apart. But something had changed. Where his posts once ignited support, the replies were now filled with hearing quotes and side-by-side comparisons. Crockett's composure versus Trump's rage. Late-night hosts didn't need to write jokes. "No, it's bad," one joked, "when the guy who used to control the media cycle is now begging for a reset." Crockett's team got interview invites from over 40 outlets within a day. By the week's end, she'd appeared on The View, Morning Joe, Don Lemon, Tonight, and even a PBS town hall in Albuquerque. But this wasn't just about visibility. She seized the moment. At a live Q&A, a college student asked, "Were you scared, confronting the president like that?" Crockett smiled softly. "Nervous, yes, but not afraid. When you speak with facts, you don't need to yell. And if someone powerful is yelling, it usually means the facts aren't on their side." That answer alone hit 12 million views in just 2 days. Meanwhile, the White House was in damage control. And what followed tested every part of the president's inner circle. Inside 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, things were nothing like the media frenzy outside. Inside, it was chaos. By mid-morning the day after, 3 senior officials had already cancelled appearances. Press Secretary Clayton Reams, usually consistent with briefings, was missing. In the West Wing, aides whispered in corners, slipped phones away, and hoped not to be summoned. Trump had spent that morning alone in the small dining room next to the Oval Office. No press, no family, just a TV looping the news. Everywhere he looked, Crockett, her voice, her words, her quotes turned into captions. "You can't lose what you gave away. If the truth rattles you, maybe it should. Not a performance and impact." At one point, he reportedly shouted, "To no one, furious that a network played a slow-mo of him slamming the table. They keep looping it like a damn GIF, like I'm a cartoon. His chief of staff, Nolan Crane, appeared at the door, unsure whether to walk in. "Sir, Senator Whitlow is on line 1. She wants to talk strategy for next week." Trump waved him off. "Tell her to call Ivanka if she wants chit-chat." Crane stood firm. "She says donors are worried. They think this might grow unless we shape the story ourselves." Trump looked up sharply. "I am the story." But even he didn't believe it anymore. Elsewhere in the East Wing, Melania had gone. Silent aides said she hadn't spoken to Trump since the night before. Her appearance at the Smithsonian was quietly cancelled. When a reporter asked for her comment on the hearing, her spokesperson replied with just 3 words: "No comment today." Back in the communications wing, Press Secretary Reams finally showed up, eyes bloodshot, shirt wrinkled, tie undone. "We need a new angle," he told the inner circle, seated at the long table. Crockett made this personal. "We stay professional. Shift the story to policy, immigration, security." One aide raised a hand. "What about ... the diaper stuff? Health rumors?" Reams sighed heavily. "We don't respond. We call it a coordinated smear trash talk. We never confirm a thing." Crane leaned forward. "We can't ignore it, either. Millions are tweeting bathroom jokes. Even the New Yorker is on it. If we don't take control, it becomes the story." At that moment, Trump walked in, shoulders tense, face tight. "Want control," he snapped. "Then find me dirt on her. A mistake. A scandal. I want every detail on Jasmine Crockett." Silence followed. Crane shifted. "We already checked her record, sir. It's clean. Strong voting history. No ethics flags. No scandals. Not even a messy marriage." Trump's eyes narrowed. Everyone hides something. The room fell quiet until Reams redirected. "We can get allies to speak up." Senator Musin agreed to release a decorum statement. "We'll say this kind of outburst damages democracy." Trump nodded. Networks love both sides. Give them something. But as their plan came together, more headlines landed. A conservative op-ed in the Arizona Sentinel warned, "The GOP must face the truth behind Section 2A or risk being flattened by it." Inside the West Wing, people whispered, "How long would this storm last?" It wasn't just a scandal anymore, it was a full standoff. The public had seen a different Trump. Not confident, not bold, but cornered. And that clip had no expiry date. The worst part, Crockett wasn't just trending. She was credible. While Trump's team hunted for flaws, she wasn't defending, she was moving forward. While they struggled with optics, Jasmine Crockett was stepping into the kind of moment most leaders only dream of. She didn't hide in her office. She didn't dodge cameras. Just 48 hours after the hearing, she walked into a town hall in Columbus, Ohio. No fancy setup, no teleprompter, just a chair, a mic, and her signature blunt style. The crowd stood as she entered. Applause, cheers, handmade signs. One read, "Truth needs a voice." "You held the line." She smiled, nodded, and motioned for calm. "I'm not here to celebrate," she began. "I didn't attend that hearing to grab headlines. I came in with questions that the American people deserved answers to. I didn't shout because I didn't have to. The facts spoke for themselves." She paused, let that settle, then added, "And I'm not finished." The room broke out. Later that evening, on The View, she sat between the hosts who asked tough questions, but never once caught her off balance. "Did you plan the diaper line?" one host asked, clearly excited. Crockett raised an eyebrow. "I didn't crack a joke. I posed a question, one backed by confirmed testimony from people who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. If folks found it funny, maybe they should ask why the truth sounds like satire." In that moment, she wasn't just a member of Congress, she became a political force, a name people started typing into search bars, a face voters were beginning to remember. She was composed, confident, and unfazed by the chaos around her. Her team was flooded with interview invitations, podcasts, even late-night shows rushed to book her. But Crockett was selective. She turned down over half the requests, choosing platforms where her message wouldn't be lost behind flashy visuals or shallow commentary. One standout moment came during an NPR Weekend Roundtable interview. The host asked, "What do you think?" He resonated most from the hearing. Crockett paused, then said, "I think people are tired of being talked down to. They're done with theatrics. They want someone who says what they're thinking without shouting, without trying to go viral, just with honesty, even if it stings." Listeners flooded the lines afterward. Many didn't even have questions, they just called to say thank you. A retired postal worker from Pittsburgh told her, "You reminded me of Barbara Jordan, calm, strong, clear. That's leadership." A teacher from Wichita added, "I played the hearing in my class. My students asked more about civic responsibility in 1 hour than they had all semester." Crockett accepted the praise, but didn't soak in it. She reminded her team, "The attention will fade, but the message needs to last." That week, her campaign donations hit record highs. But more than the money, the change in supporters stood out. 60% were under 35, and most had never donated to a political campaign before. "I wasn't planning to donate to anyone," one college student commented on her campaign post. "But that hearing showed me not all politicians are just noise. You earned it." In Memphis, local organizers launched a campaign called Speak, like Crockett, encouraging high school students to practice debate using her hearing clips. In Dallas, her hometown, an artist painted a mural of her in deep alumno slogans. Just her portrait and the quote, "Every line affects 330 million people." It wasn't a movement, not yet, but something was shifting. Behind closed doors, Democratic strategists began wondering if she was ready for leadership. Not today, but maybe soon. Her name started popping up in op-eds. A voice to watch. Still, Crockett wasn't chasing that spotlight. In a quiet moment with her chief of staff, she made her position clear. "I didn't come to Congress to be a star," she said. "I came to be a mirror. And if people don't like what they see when I hold it up, that's not on me. That's the country's problem." But just as her voice gained power nationwide, opposition started building, and this time, it wasn't just words. By Friday morning, the backlash machinery had started. Anonymous leaks began popping up in conservative circles. Questions about Crockett's conduct. One article teased. Another claimed she violated committee rules, but didn't specify how. It wasn't about facts, it was about planting doubt. By Saturday, it exploded nationally. Representative Clyde Henshaw of Arkansas, a traditional Republican known for exploiting House rules, announced he was filing a formal complaint to censure Crockett. The resolution claimed she disrespected the presidency and engaged in personal attacks not fit for a member of Congress. Cable news jumped on the story. Conservative anchors called the censure necessary, one even labeled her a disgrace in a power suit. But this wasn't 2003. The country had changed, and so had the conversation. By Sunday, Crockett stood at her Dallas office podium, in front of more press than ever before. No script, no notes, just her voice. "The censure isn't about civility," she said. "It's about control. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I asked the president to clarify contradictions that concern the American people. Now they want to punish me for doing my job." Her tone stayed even, her pace slow. No drama, just exhaustion from the drama around her. "I was elected to speak plainly," she added, "not to make power feel comfortable." A local journalist asked, "Do you regret mentioning his marriage or health rumors?" Crockett looked straight at him. If he doesn't want people to question his honesty, he should stop lying. If he doesn't want people to question his health, he should stop hiding it. That moment aired on every network. Some that hadn't even covered the hearing played the clip. She wasn't just defending herself, she was exposing the game. And people were paying attention. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, the real battle began. On Monday, the House voted on the censure. Final count, 214 in favor, 216 against. It failed by just 2 votes. Those swing votes came from moderate Republicans, pressured by their constituents. One of them, Representative Martin Cordell from Idaho, said outside the chamber, "I didn't like how she said it, but I respect that she said it and did it without shouting." Crockett didn't celebrate. She walked out the same way she walked in steady.com. But her team knew the momentum was still with them. That night, during a private staff meeting, her senior advisor asked, "Want to put out a statement?" She shook her head. "No, let them wear it." They brought it to the floor. The people shut it down. That is the statement. While Congress focused on punishment, her support kept growing. Town halls overflowed. People stood in long lines just to hear her speak. In Tulsa, during Q&A, a teenage girl stood up. "You made me believe I could speak up even if I'm the only one in the room who looks like me." Crockett didn't cry, but she reached out, held the girl's hand, and said, "If they don't give you space, make it. If they don't hand you the mic, move closer to it. Never wait for permission to speak the truth." That quote hit headlines. The next day, critics kept firing, calling her too aggressive, too focused on drama, not bipartisan. but none of it stuck. People had seen the footage. They saw her stay calm while the president unraveled. Every attempt to silence her only made her more powerful, not louder, but more effective. But Crockett didn't want revenge, she had bigger plans. 1 week after the hearing, she stood at the podium of the JFK Presidential Library in Boston. She'd been invited to speak at a leadership forum. No cheering crowd, no applause signs, just students, veterans, reporters, and everyday Americans, still thinking about what they'd seen on live TV. When she stepped forward, the room went quiet. They expected heat. She gave them reflection. "I've had a lot of mics in front of me this week," she began. Most of them wanted to talk about the moment, what was said, how it spread, how it looked on TV. "But I came here to talk about what comes after the moment." She paused. Let the room breathe. We live in a time where it's easier to perform leadership than to practice it. It's simpler to manage headlines than to manage truth. But when we start measuring success by attention, not service, in danger, it wasn't an attack. It was a mirror held not just to the president, but to all of us, including herself. "Accountability," she said finally, "is not an attack. Being open isn't being harsh. Questioning the most powerful person in the country doesn't show disrespect. It shows responsibility." The crowd leaned forward. This wasn't just a moment for the cameras. It was something more rare. A truth that couldn't be denied. She shared what happened after the hearing. She went home, removed her shoes, sat on the edge of her bed, and didn't feel victorious, just worn down. "Everyone kept calling it a win," she said, "but it didn't feel like one. It felt like saying something everyone already knew, but no one wanted to say out loud." She paused, then changed her tone. "I didn't enjoy putting the president in that position, but I had to do it. We've spent years avoiding dysfunction, scared of turning things political, but staying silent doesn't protect democracy. Telling the truth does." A man coughed in the back. A woman near the front wiped a tear. Crockett kept going, her voice calm and clear. "I don't care about being famous. I care about making sure no child watching thinks that yelling is brave and asking questions means fear." That line struck a chord. Not dramatic, just deeply real. She spoke about public service, about how politics should be about people, not a stage. How we've started measuring leaders by how they perform, not what they stand for. "I want people to know it's okay to speak up, even if it's awkward, even if your voice shakes, especially when no one else is talking." The clapping came only after she finished. But it was genuine, not because she attacked anyone, but because she made people believe things could still change. That politics didn't have to be a show, that, maybe, just maybe, respect could matter again. Later that night, a reporter asked how she was handling the pressure. She answered, "Pressure only breaks what's empty." Her words started spreading again, not because they were flashy, but because they meant something. Editorials came from all sides. One conservative writer said, "You don't have to agree with her to admit she reminded us what real integrity under fire looks like." A former ambassador tweeted, "Crockett didn't disgrace the presidency. She reminded it of its duty." That quote landed on the front page of the Oregon Tribune the next day. Now, it wasn't about the headlines or the confrontation. It had become something larger. 2 weeks later, Crockett sat down for an interview at a small radio station in Dayton, Ohio. No cameras, no fancy setup. Just a simple room with old carpet, a static-filled mic, and the kind of honesty you rarely see on national TV. The soft-spoken reporter leaned forward. "You've become a symbol for people tired of all the noise. People who just want the truth, not a fight. Do you feel the pressure of that?" She took a long pause. "I don't feel pressured to be a symbol," she replied. "I feel the responsibility to stay human. Symbols don't get tired, but people do." She glanced at her hands, then looked up again. "After the hearing, I ate dinner alone. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to think. Not about headlines, but about a woman who emailed me. She said she'd never spoken up at work when her boss crossed a line. She didn't think she had the right, but after watching me sit in that room, she found her voice. She gave a small, almost smile. That's what matters, not the noise, not the media spin, just one person finding strength they didn't know they had." The reporter stayed quiet, letting the silence settle, then asked, "If you could say one thing to the president now, no cameras, just off the record, what would it be?" She didn't pause. "I'd tell him he still has a choice. He can keep putting on a show, keep shouting, keep hiding behind pride, or he can stop pretending and be honest with the country." Her tone was soft, not angry, not proud. Just clear. The kind of calm that comes when you look power in the eye and don't blink. By the end of that week, she was back in Washington. Committee meetings, floor votes, and inboxes full of both hate and gratitude. The noise had faded, but something had shifted. Now when she walked through the Capitol, people said her name with respect. At airports, strangers didn't just thank her, they asked her real questions about leadership, truth, and responsibility. Reagan National Airport, one man gave her a handwritten note. It read, "You made silence uncomfortable. Thank you." And maybe that's the real legacy of the hearing. Not the viral video, not the confrontation, not even the political aftermath. It was the quiet bravery that reminded people watching at home. Truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. Real strength isn't about banging the table or raising your voice. It's in staying steady while power stumbles. That's the kind of leadership we need. Not those chasing the spotlight, but those who face the moment with clarity. People who don't humiliate others, but ask the questions others avoid. So if there's one takeaway from Jasmine Crockett's moment, it's this: being decent is not being weak. Being clear is not being cruel. And quiet truth can shake the room louder than a scream. Now more than ever, our country needs that kind of courage, not just in government, but in classrooms, workplaces, and homes. We need people ready to speak, even if it's hard, even if they're alone, even if their voice trembles. Because silence fixes nothing, but speaking up just might. And if that's the kind of strength you believe in, strength in truth, in honesty, in real leadership, then stay with us. There's more to come.